basically showing me a bunch of slideware without showing me the actual product. I want to be able, get my hands a little dirty when it comes to that stuff. So I think there's a lot of truth to giving someone a product that can just work. That's our tagline in a lot of ways, right? Like literally, the product just works, and that's not the way that this part of the industry has run for a very long time.
Welcome to All Aboard, a podcast brought to you by Conductor One. All Aboard is a show designed to equip security and IT pros with the knowledge, tools, and practical advice to keep their teams secure and productive. In each episode, we'll be joined by industry leaders, experts, and innovators. They'll share their tips and insights for tackling the toughest problems facing IT and security teams today. So, sit back, relax, and join us on the ride. All aboard.
I'm your host, Alex Bovey, CEO and co-founder at Conductor One. For today's episode, I have the pleasure of hosting Kunal Agarwal, founder and CEO at Dope Security, a startup that's reimagining secure web gateways. Kunal's been working in the security industry for over 15 years and has seen firsthand how difficult and frustrating it can be to get value from legacy cybersecurity solutions. During our discussion, we break down what a secure service edge is and where it fits into the security stack. And we hear Kunal's tips on channeling passion into product development and how the team at Dope are setting themselves apart in an established space. Let's get into today's show. Well, tell me a little bit about what you guys are working on and how did you, how did you really come across the idea to solve the problem that you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, it's like not unlike anything else, right? You're going in and you're dealing with something every single day, right? And so my background was always on the hacking side of things, but when I joined after university and you kind of move from the bad side to the good side, the whole idea has always been around like, let's work on something, but let's always try to make it better, right? That's all about the innovation. And I was at Symantec and ForcePoint for almost 10 years. And you're there, in, out, keep going. And at some certain point, you're like, wow, this is actually a very, very mainstream problem that could probably be done a little bit better. And that is the genesis for Dope Security.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And how does, not being like super familiar with what you guys are working on a deep level, but can you tell me a little bit about, does that fit into the like zero trust architecture? Like how does that sort of fit into the ecosystem of security tools that are out there today?
Yeah, so like I think the way that we usually typically tell people about it or understand it is that there is an area of cyber, right, called, there's EPP, EDR, things like that, and then there's SSE, right, Security Service Edge. And typically in a Security Service Edge, you have like three main components, right? You have your Secure Web Gateway, your CASB, your Private Access. Those are your three main components. And we, a few months ago, released the first component of that, which is part one of three of our whole portfolio, which was Secure Web Gateway. And essentially, the reason why these technologies exist is to help understand and control and secure the web traffic and channel of what someone's accessing on their laptop. And obviously that's evolved over the years, but in a simplest sense, a use case could be, hey, I don't want people accessing malicious websites on my website without any concern on what browser or command or PowerShell script, whatever it may be. I don't want them doing that. I don't want them accessing illegal content like a piracy website, things like that. Or I want to somehow control the access to a cloud application. Like as an example, hey, I don't want someone using anything besides my corporate Slack inside the organization. So things like that. These are all sort of the typical use cases that you see people like using it. And it's very common, right? This is like a very mainstream product that goes into pretty much every company out there has some kind of form of a secure web gateway in their organization.
Yep, totally makes sense. And then how do you see, you mentioned a little bit before that some of these technologies have been around in different ways, shapes, and forms before, maybe of like more of a verticalized solution around, let's say like secure web gateway or CASB. And it sounds like your approach is more platform centric and you're building a little bit of a broader set of capabilities there in a single product. Why do you think, can you talk a little bit about that strategy, or why is that the right strategy for companies, and or how are you different than the existing solutions?
Yeah, so it's actually like there's two parts, right? One is architecture. First things first is that when you go in and use a secure web gateway today, you're basically installing some software on all your laptops. And you're going in and rerouting the internet from your device to their vendor data center. And from the vendor data center, it goes to the internet. And the way you'd kind of think about it is that you're taking a flight from, say, San Francisco to Los Angeles, and now you're stopping over in New York for a security check. It makes actually no sense. And yet, it's always been like that. And so our approach is like, hey, let's make it into a fly direct mentality. Is that you could have the software itself perform the security controls. And by doing so, you actually have a San Francisco to Los Angeles flight, goes in, does its thing, and you do the security check before you even get on the airplane. And that's the idea behind dope security. You think about that, and architecture is important. And I think the next really important part, in my view, has always been about user experience, right? When you go in and use something like this, it has to look and feel amazing. And that, I would say, is the secret sauce of the dope security signature that we give to people, is it needs to look really, really cool.
So this is actually like a very recurring thread that I've heard consistently with a lot of our peers in the security space that are building modern security products today, is that hyper focus on user experience and usability and time to value. Can you go a little bit deeper in that, and why do you think that's so important, particularly for security products? Why is that important for end users?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that the biggest thing is that there is like obviously lots and lots of tools out there, right? And once upon a time, you'd go to the store, you'd buy some software, it'd come on a CD, and then you'd have a manual and everything like that. That's just like not the way that consumers use technologies today. And to be honest, a lot of these enterprise SaaS solutions they're just built the same way. You have to talk to a salesperson, you have to go in through weeks of PowerPoint presentations, and finally 4 weeks later you have access to product. And for us at Dope Security, we're like, that makes actually no sense. What if we could allow you to start using this in a few minutes? And as a matter of fact, you can. Our competitors, Zscaler, Netscope, Symantec, ForcePoint, doesn't matter what you are, it'll take you weeks to get access to the product. It could take you weeks to get started. With us, go to the website, sign in using your Office 365 or Google account, and you're in. You can download your endpoint, you'll have it ready and up and running in minutes. So it's just a little bit
Yep.
different. A little
Yeah,
bit.
no,
It's like,
no, I think it's important. I mean, I had a lot of my career in the times of sort of like traditional enterprise software, or when cloud was just evolving. I think that model was still very much the case, where it was like a very enterprise sales driven process, right? Like you had to talk to someone potentially for weeks. There was very non-transparent pricing. There was very difficult to use user experiences because it was typically sold to like a single buyer who, might know and believe that that solution is the right thing for the organization, but didn't necessarily care about the considerations around adoption or how easy it was to deploy the solution. So, that resonates a lot with us at Conductor One too, because we're super focused on user experience as well. Some of our earliest hires, frankly, were designers to make sure that we just nailed the user experience for our customers. So, resonates with me a lot.
it's super important, right? You shouldn't require like a user manual to get up and running.
Totally. Do you have any spicy takes on the security ecosystem or what's happening in security and or predictions for 2023?
Spicy takes. Well, I am a big fan of being true to who you are, right? And so for me, like, I worked at these big companies, and I always wanted to work at these big companies, even when I was a kid. But when we started Dope Security, the word dope really means a lot, especially from the Bay Area or really anywhere, right? We can't go in the Bay, you cannot go 5 minutes without saying dope in a conversation. Like, oh, Top Gun 2 is dope, this is dope, that is dope. It's just impossible. And so that is why we called the company Dope Security. It's because of that passion and energy that goes into the word. You're like, oh, that is dope. We want someone to feel like, hey, the website, the white paper, everything, the product should feel and look dope. And so, like, I being born and raised on the east side of San Jose, like, we grew up in a very interesting world, right? And so many of my friends and colleagues, whatever it is, like, that's where you grew up. And so when I see cybersecurity companies being popped up and everywhere, like, we want to bring that California energy into the product, if that makes sense. And so I guess my hot take would be like, yeah, you got to be more authentic. Like, be true to who you are. When you go in and you say, oh, we're a cloud generation, it's like, dude, you took your OVA and then you hosted it in AWS on an EC2 instance. You're not cloud native. Stop lying to your customers. And so that for me can be hurtful, right? Because there are incredible engineers out there. Why not expose that to the world and just really be authentic with what you do?
Yeah, I agree with that. One of my pet peeves, I would say, from like a security marketing standpoint, is the tendency for security companies to like latch on to the term du jour. So, maybe like 7 years ago, everything was next gen something. Then for a while, everything was like zero trust the thing. And then my prediction next is it's going to be AI, machine learning driven something. And it's just kind of like, it's a little bit ridiculous. It's like you just can't take old technology and sprinkle a little bit of marketing dust on it and make it better. You really got to build from the heart, to your point, up in and like, super address customer problems and really be focused on what your differentiators are that make you unique and interesting.
And I get it, right? It sucks. You're in a big company. There's a huge amount of Titanic level inertia and momentum going on, but you cannot force it, right? You talked about this earlier, like, yo, isn't this like a combination of products? I said, yeah, it's Swig, Casby, private access. In most companies, those are three separate complete products, right? They're in some companies, they're even three separate companies that just happen to be under the same brand umbrella now. And for me, I have really, and the entire team, right? We're about 30 people, and we're all from Semantic and ForcePoint, right? So we learned at these organizations, and I mean, I can't speak for every company out there, but we learned a lot, right? And I learned a lot. But what never stopped is the passion and energy that we have towards building something awesome. And a lot of times, some of the people in the company, they were laid off from these companies, and it wasn't their fault. They worked really, really hard on a project that wasn't moving anything forward. And I think that's what sets us apart in a lot of different ways, is trying to do the best thing for the engineering team. That's my responsibility. The best thing for the salesperson, because they are staking their lives on selling something. They should be proud of it as well. And then last but not least is the customer themselves. They should feel like there is no better first class experience they can get from anywhere else besides Dope Security. At least in our
Yeah,
area.
yeah, totally. The other thing that that I've observed as well, particularly I would say with like the more modern cloud forward companies, is how, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, but it's like how they want to buy the product is very different. They want transparent pricing. They want as much sort of PLG self-service sign up experience as you can get. They want to be able to see screenshots before they even talk to a salesperson. They basically want to sell themselves on the product before they actually even talk to a salesperson. I see that you guys are embracing that in a lot of ways with transparent pricing, with self-service sign up. Any other just like thoughts there as it relates to, how you see your customers particularly really wanting to buy and use your solution?
Yeah, I mean, I think the process of getting something, you want it to be a beautiful experience, right? You're going in, you get access to a product, you test it out, you test a few use cases, you make sure it works for you, and then you can talk to someone from the company, right? And unfortunately, obviously, it's not always going to happen like that. There may be some pitching and everything like that. But what I've found is a lot of folks that just enjoy it. Like, if I can do it on my own, I'm more happy rather than you basically showing me a bunch of slideware without showing me the actual product. I want to be able, get my hands a little dirty when it comes to that stuff. So I think there's a lot of truth to giving someone a product that can just work. That's our tagline in a lot of ways, right? Like literally, the product just works, and that's not the way that this part of the industry has run for a very long time.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that around time to value of the product experience? Because that's something that we also see at Conductor One. Like our customers really love the fact that you can get up and running on the product super quickly. It's like API driven, it's quick, it's easy to use. Do you see a similar need from your customer base in terms of being able to get up and running on the Swig solution very quickly? And how have you thought about investing in that from like a product and engineering perspective?
I mean, as it is, every company product, it can have a different definition of time to value, right? So, and it's going to happen in phases, right? So the first time to value is essentially a few minutes after you sign up on the website, and then you install the software to help you perform the secure web gateway on your laptop, right? And then from there, you start getting tons of data, right? Like, for example, you try to access the pirate bay.org, it gets blocked. That's your first time to value. You're up and running in just a few minutes and you're ready to go. Then another time to value, as an example, is like, hey, I want to go in and apply group-based policies to my users. Well, we've made it so it's a checkbox to do single sign-on, right? You just checkbox, hit save, you're done. You want to import your users, you don't have to configure SCIM. You can just go in and import your users from Office 365 and Google, and you're done. So it's much easier, right? Like, I mean, you're talking about minutes and minutes versus, yeah, in like a 30-minute call, we can go in and do a Jamf deployed system for 5 systems without having to like break a sweat. It was impossible to do this at Symantec or ForcePoint. It was just, first off, it wouldn't even work on Mac, so it didn't even work correctly. But it's not comes down to the talent of the people. Sometimes there's like a lot of other forces at work, and I think there's like passionate people out there like yourself, like everyone potentially watching this, and there are ways and reasons to go in and apply that passion towards something, right?
Dude, I'm totally gonna have to steal the you can deploy Conductor One without breaking a sweat from you, because that is like a great tagline. That's really good. Deploy your security solutions without breaking a sweat, because I feel like, at least in our industry, we see this a lot. Traditional IGA, privilege access management, kind of identity security, all up, authorization control. It was like long 6-12 month projects with tons of professional services to deploy these solutions with like, and the failure rate was insane, like 50% plus failure rate of the projects. Like people hate it. People look at it, they're like, I just have this problem to solve. I need a solution that can do that. If you can get someone there in minutes, as opposed to literally like a year-long drawn-out implementation that is a high risk of failure, that's a way better product and solution for them.
Totally. I mean, like, and to be fair, right? I mean, look, IGA gets a little more complex, but we used to be a PM for one of two-factor and IAM solution. It's like, dude, it's not that complicated. All I want to do is do some SSO, do some user provisioning and deprovisioning, and make sure it's like largely workflowed. That's not. It was, if you look 10 years ago, almost like 10 years ago, it's impossible. You had to go in, deploy a software appliance. You had to go in, get multiple HA configurations. And then like people were like, oh, actually, I don't want my users in the cloud. I do want my users in the cloud. And it was a mess. And yeah, I mean, that's the reason why,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, hard tokens, all that, dude. I was deep in that at Okta, running the authentication platform, thinking a lot about like interoperability with like hard tokens and how do you deploy those, and like just the challenges. Even in the cloud, I think the cloud made it a lot better, but the reality is when you had to interop with that old world, you see a lot of it. You'd see the RSA appliances and things like that, and it was brutal world.
You got it, right? And it's like there is always going to be evolutions, right? Like you were at Okta, great. So there was RSA tokens, then there was like things like cloud-based hosted tokens like VIP, Symantec VIP, and Duo and things like that. And then there's like kind of an evolution where those got integrated into the IAM service in general. But like which we're very proud of, like myself, our head of cloud engineering, as a matter of fact, used to be in the mobile architect. We were a PM architect. We worked together for the last 10 years. And we were the ones that built the first two-factor on the VIP push, right?
So no way, good for you guys, man. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
It was a fun time, but our whole thing was, again, is driving excitement towards the product. And even today, if you use the Symantec VIP application, it's the same application. You type in your username, you type in your password, and then you just swipe right to accept on your phone. And that experience is cool, right? It's like, I mean, if you're using Tinder, you just swipe right, left, same thing, So
yeah,
it made it kind of. But we didn't have to do that. Right?
Yeah, the Tinder of multi-factor authentication.
It's real, by the way. It's completely real. But again, did we have to go in and put that passion and energy to say, look, you just swipe right, that's it? We didn't have to do that. We could have just made a nice little, checkbox there, but then it wouldn't have been dope, right?
Yeah, yeah, with you. Yeah, one of my, it was like kind of, it was like one of the nerdiest things that I worked on, but in a strange way, one of the things I was most proud of was at Okta, when I was working on multi-factor authentication, we did a lot of work to actually make it super simple to set up modern multi-factor authentication with Radius protocol integration. And it's one of those things that's like, man, doing that before was so hard. How you had to interop with it was hard. The user experiences were really brutal. But if you really looked at it with that user experience lens, there was so much that you could do there that made, the experience of authenticating on like a legacy Cisco VPN or something like that actually better. Now, thankfully, we've got all new technologies out there for, zero trust network access and SASE and all that kind of stuff. So we don't maybe have to be in that world so much. You can use a YubiKey now to authenticate, but it was good while it lasted.
Well, look, if you had an old ASA box and you're doing radius authentication and you're trying to use the Okta Verify, totally get it, right? And so,
You're doing the best with what you got.
exactly, right? But I think that's what changes over time, right? Is that over time we have to also build new things and also change the way we're thinking about things. And I mean, there are people out there like yourself, that are thinking about these problems in a little bit of a different way, maybe a lot of a different way, but also a little bit. And I think building that identity of a cybersecurity company, at least for me, has been really, really, really awesome. I've loved it.
So I heard you guys just raised your Series A. Tell me a little bit about it. Who'd you take money from? Why'd you take money from them? What are you going to do with it?
Well, the world has certainly changed, Alex. So, this process almost went on for a year of due diligence meetings and things like that, like again and again and again. But for me, at least, I felt it to be the most important thing possible because I needed to know who this person is, right? They're coming to the table and trying to be part of something that is my, like child almost. And so as a company, everybody wants to know who that person is. So we got this really awesome partner, Google Ventures. And there's a guy there, Sangin. And Sangin, he was amazing from day one, right? He said, I want to do this. And I said, okay, great. Let's make it happen. And so we kept meeting, and he kept introducing for due diligence and this and technical and this and that. And at the same time, he was also introducing to customers again and again. And it became this perfect match made in heaven where I knew him well enough to actually get things that he was interested in or he may have been worried about, and we just brought it all together and finally announced that yesterday, as a matter of fact. So it's pretty cool. It's been a really, really amazing experience.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. So when you think about like 2023, 2024, you got a war chest of money with your Series A. What are your big plans? What are you going to go do with it?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like big plans, but then, for us, it's all about step by step, right? We've always been about that. Not about just like going in, all right, let's open up the coffers and start throwing money in the air, right? It's about like, well, we've built something that really works. And let's enhance, and build the platform so that we can quickly just make things that customers like, right? I mean, even some of the new features that are coming out, to be honest, they don't actually change what actually happens with the product. However, they make it easier. I'll give you a simple example, right? And I'm sure if you've ever used a secure gateway, it's like SSL inspection and pinning, SSL key pinning basically is one of the most annoying things possible. With our technology, next month, you're going to be able to just go in, check, and bypass those applications that are broken. And that does not exist to date in any product in the world that does this. And so for us to go in and resolve this, it's like, well, you made someone's life way easier. They don't have to talk to the person that's having the employee that's having a problem. They have to coordinate a Zoom schedule with them. They don't have to get the debug logs. None of that has to happen. And that is ultimately really, really helpful for our customers.
I believe so much in that. There's two things you said there that like resonate with me insanely. One is the idea of just consistently making things a little bit better. We talk a lot internally at Conductor One about 1% better every day. And just the idea of you don't have to have these huge step function changes and everything, right? Like you don't have to do a massive website overhaul to make the website look better in the messaging and the positioning, but just think constantly about how do you make that 1% better every day, every week, because those things compound and eventually you end up with something that's really amazing. The other piece is investing in features that may not be the sizzliest or the sexiest, but just deliver like value for the customers or solve some totally rough edge or pain point. I love doing that from a product standpoint because everybody just bumps into those things that are, it makes it's like a pain point in the space, or it's like an issue, or it's a challenge to adoption. And it might literally be like, kind of like what you said, it might be like a checkbox in the settings, but that thing just made everybody's life so much better. You got to do those features. I love doing those features, actually.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing. It doesn't matter. We'll make it sexy if it isn't. So we
Yes.
will show. I mean, like these are my favorite, right? You go in, you just press a checkbox, you hit save. Second later, the policy's already up to date because we have a real-time notification goes in, gets the latest policy, da da da. That doesn't exist today,
That's
and I
awesome.
think
That sounds dope.
exactly, it sounds dope. But I think it's just like what you said, right? Like there is a lot of joy that comes out of those things, and that step by step sometimes is more important than trying to make these grandiose promises and that grandeur that people expect. It's these visions aren't real, right? And I think that was one of the biggest things that for me really sucked, right? We'd be working hard, and you were in products, you'd understand this. Like you're working really hard on doing something, and then there's someone else who's having this completely different executive level conversation, which had no meaning, no future, and it's never going to come out on the roadmap. And you're almost talking to a customer and saying, "Oh yeah, this is going to come," and you're like thinking in the back of your head, "There's no chance.
There's no way it's going to
There's
make it
no
past the
way."
they're going to get funded, unfortunately.
Well, we,
Um,
we, we, we almost think about it as like an anti-exec mentality at the
I
company,
like
right? Is
that.
that
I like that.
everyone, myself, anyone in the company, we always like to be the people that are doing it. And you don't have to always be that person, but you have to be able to understand it. So whether you're an engineer in marketing and sales, doesn't matter who you are, we can demo the product, we can show you the product, we can go in and actually understand what is going on. That's super cool.
Yep. Yeah, I like that a lot. Thanks for tuning in. This episode of All Aboard is brought to you by the team at Conductor One. We'd love to hear your feedback. Send us a message at allaboard@conductor1.com. Until next time.